Welcome to Nurses Out Loud, where nurses speak truth, challenge narratives, and share the heart behind the headlines. I'm your host, Nurse Jodi O'Malley. And before we dive in, if you believe nurses' voices matter, take a second to like, follow, and leave a quick review wherever you're listening. It helps more nurses find these conversations and join the movement to bring integrity back to healthcare. Around here, we don't whisper about what's wrong in healthcare. We talk about it out loud. From the heartbreaking to the hopeful, the controversial to the courageous, no topic is off limits. We're pulling back the curtain on what really happens behind hospital doors and far beyond them, because nurses are there at the beginning of life and at the end of life and everywhere in between. We are the hands that heal, the advocates who protect, and the voices that speak truth when silence feels easier. Our influence does not stop at the bedside. It reaches into our communities, our schools, our churches, and even the halls of government. Wherever integrity and compassion are needed, nurses belong there. And if you've seen something wrong with healthcare, it's going to be the nurses who change it. We are 5 million strong across this nation. We are the last line of defense for truth, for patients, and for the profession we love. So grab your coffee, take a deep breath, and join me for another honest, unfiltered conversation that empowers and inspires you to live out your calling with courage, conviction, and faith. Let's get this started. We're going to tackle a fast, high-impact story. The federal student loans are being rewritten. And in the draft, nursing grad programs were left off the higher professional degree tier, the one that comes with higher loan caps. Translation, it could become harder to afford nurse practitioner, CRNA, CNS, or nurse educator programs. Fewer advanced nurses in a country that's been saying nursing shortage for 30 years just came out and said, you cannot qualify for a loan to pay for these schools. Make it make sense, right? In the next few minutes, I'm going to break down this super simply. What changed, why it matters, who it benefits, and what we can do. No alphabet soup, no policy jargon, just practical truth for busy nurses. And I want to shout out our sponsor here, Righteous RN CEU Ethics Training. It is brought to you by me, a whistleblower in 2021. I took my case studies and I made modules out of them. And we have CEUs attached to them. So you will hear from real nurses, their real stories, and we will break it down and talk about nursing post-COVID 2020. All right, guys, so here's the gist. Washington is moving to a 2-tier system for graduate student loans. Tier 1, professional programs. So I want you to think medicine, dentistry, law, pharmacy, etc. Higher annual and lifetime loan caps. Tier 2, everyone else, lower caps. In the draft definition, the department floated nursing wasn't on the professional list. So while doctors, dentists, lawyers, and other keep the higher caps, nursing grad students would be pushed into the lower cap bucket. What does that feel like in real life? Well, it means that a lot of nurses who could have afforded to pursue the NP or CRNA or become faculty will run into a financing wall. Some will try anyway and drown in side jobs. Many will simply not enroll. And that's the play. Shrink the pipeline without ever saying, we're shrinking the pipeline. All right, so let's bring this to the bedside. Why does this hit patient care? Because there's a real-world impact here. If fewer nurses can finance grad school, we're going to see fewer primary care access points and fewer anesthesia providers, especially in rural and underserved areas where advanced practice nursing is the lifeline. Fewer nurse educators equal fewer students. We already turn away qualified nursing applicants because programs can't staff enough faculty. And lowering the loan caps for grad nursing just chokes the faculty pipeline. And that locks in the shortage for years. 3, you have longer waits, higher costs, burnout that just never ends. When the pipeline narrows, patient care backs up. You get longer ER waits, fewer same-day visits, deferred procedures, and on the unit, ratios stay unsafe. Turnover stays high. I mean, we've all lived this. And I want to humanize that for a moment. Let me just tell you a little story. So meet Sarah, a 5-year bedside rock star in Phoenix. She wants to go to CRNA school and become a nurse anesthetist. Under lower loan caps, the funding gap has to cover balloons. She's already juggling 2 per diem gigs and a kiddo. She does the math and says, I can't. Now multiply Sarah by a few thousand across the country, and you've just engineered a future where your OR staff can't staff anesthesia without paying crisis rates or canceling cases. Patients ultimately pay the price. And I always like to follow the money. You don't need a PhD in policy. Just remember this. Manufactured scarcity equals power and profit. Staffing middlemen thrive when shortages persist. Crisis rates, billable margins, cha-ching, cha-ching. Incumbent guilds face less competition when advanced nursing grows slower. Big systems and vendors push harder into remote tech outsourcing when clinicians are scarce. Import pipelines look more attractive when domestic pathways are financially blocked. And budget watchers get to say they saved money by lending less, while the real costs, morbidity, delays, turnover, hit patients and hospitals, not the spreadsheet in D.C. None of that is conspiracy. It's incentive math. And unless nurses speak up, incentive math wins. Now, we want to ask, isn't this just fiscal discipline? Here's a rebuttal. We're trying to control student debt. Well, great. Then don't control it by targeting nursing, the profession you keep saying is in shortage. If the goal is affordability, include nursing on the professional list and pursue tuition down strategies with schools and clinical partners. Rebuttal 2. Loan caps won't really change supply. And you just ask any admission office or student who walked away at the funding step. Financing absolutely changes who enrolls, who persists, and who graduates, especially for mid-career women who are balancing work, kids, and caregiving. If you choke financing, you choke the future workforce, period. So here's what we want. This is not about wearing a red or blue jersey. It's about patients. It's about people. And our ask is simple. Add nursing. NP, CRNA, CNS, nurse midwifery, education tracks to the professional degree list with the higher caps. That's it. No drama, no gotcha, just add nursing. If medicine is on the list, if dentistry is on the list, nursing belongs on the list. We carry a massive share of hands-on care, prevention, access, and health education in this country. Don't starve the pipeline and then complain you can't hire, and then complain there's a nursing shortage, and then complain about patient care. What you can do today, guys, is share this episode with 3 nurses who are thinking about grad school. Email or call your reps and simply say, add nursing to the professional degree loan definition. Tell your school and your hospital leadership that you support that change loudly and proudly. If you're driving, I'll copy and paste a text with some talking points in the show notes so that you can take action in minutes. Yeah, it blows my mind. I have been a nurse. I graduated in 2013 from my school with my associate degree as an RN. And then in 2014, I graduated with my BSN. A few years later, I graduated with my master's degree. And I was actually thinking about going back and getting my nurse practitioner or my psych certification, psychiatric nurse practitioner certification. And I sit there and say, I wouldn't be able to afford it. There's no way. With my advocacy, with my volunteer work, with having to work at the bedside, with training and doing ethics education, it was already enough for me to think about going back to school to get my psychiatric MP. But now, if they change the loan caps, there's no way I would be able to afford that and still pay back my student loans that I have now. It just blows my mind how we have also said that there is a mental health epidemic in our country. And as a psychiatric nurse practitioner, you can have your own practice. You can prescribe medications. We're just like a doctor in that aspect. So why would they leave nursing off the professional list? Why? I mean, when you think about nefarious reasons, to me, it's like, okay, well, what do you want? A socialized system where people cannot get access to the care that they need, that they have to wait months to get a doctor's appointment? You have a lot of MPs that are in the hospital or in the clinics that are seeing patients. You see them at your pharmacies, right? Like CVS, Walgreens. You see them at your primary care doctor. You see them at the hospital floor, writing orders, rounding on patients. Why would they take that professional title away from us? They have removed us from the table for so long. Nurses, we are in every aspect from the beginning of life to the end of life and everywhere in between. And they are not saying that we are professional. We have a license. We have a code of ethics. We have a board that we need to answer to for disciplinary charges or allegations. How in the world was that even a thought to leave nursing off the list? I mean, make it make sense, right? It's almost like, mostly nurses are females. And I sit here and think even about the recent FDA announcement that the study on hormone replacement therapy was faulty over 20 years ago. But yet that information got disseminated to the masses, and women have been struggling with menopause. Okay. I mean, and when we talk about that, menopause, what is that? Hot flashes, anxiety, night sweats, not sleeping, increase in fracture bone, low libido, incontinence, vaginal atrophy. You think, man, do they really just want to just keep pounding us down, where we're here trying to rise above all of this, even with all of those issues. But we are at the hands of these bureaucrats in Washington. We have nurses that are senators and representatives. And nursing, to go through nursing school was like the hardest time of my life. More harder than even being a teenage mom, I tell people a lot of the times. And when I think about the menopause aspect of this and them having that faulty study, but doctors just read the headline of the study. They didn't look into the age group of that study, which was women that were about 10 years past menopause, to say that they had an increased risk. There's so many things that I think that we do in healthcare that is absolutely against any type of health. And you look at the issues that we have had in this country with even COVID. We've had the absolute worst response. We've had the poorest outcomes of any country like us in the world. And when I sit back and I think about all of those things and think about what we are doing to the health of our children, the health of ourselves, labeling people, medicating people without any coping skills, allowing women to, go through the change and just keep saying, "Oh, that's normal. That's normal, honey. That's what happens when you get older. You just go through this. Yeah, mom's a little crazy today. Just leave mom alone." That's wild to me. It's wild to me. And then when I hear about them leaving nursing off of the professional list, when, my goodness, in the 90s, I was thinking about going back to school, or I was going to school, wanting to go to school for nursing. And I looked at what they were getting paid. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to bartend. I'll make 3 times as much money bartending, working 21 hours a week, than I would being a nurse working full time. So I didn't do that. I didn't follow my passion or my calling until later in life. And I absolutely never would have been able to afford getting my higher degree, being able to educate, if I didn't have loan opportunities. But back then in the 90s, they said there's a nursing shortage. We need nurses. This is the profession that is exploding. And my goodness, guys, that's 30 years ago. 30 years ago. And now we have even more of a crisis, right? Because you have, let's say 10 years ago, they were saying that go get your NP because there's a lot of need for nurse practitioners. And then now they're saying, what? We don't need you anymore? But there's still a shortage. There's still this crisis. We have so many things wrong in this country, from politics to healthcare to humanity. The way we are treating people and the way we are treating ourselves truly needs to be looked at, I believe, under the lens of this good versus evil, okay? Because this, to me, is a spiritual battle that has been raging for a long time, but now we're seeing it play out in the spirits that are controlling people, whether that be, the spirit of anger, the spirit of fear, anxiety, depression, gender dysphoria. This is really evil, and this is a spiritual crisis that we are in. And so, guys, I want to take this opportunity to really announce to you something that happened to me recently that I absolutely still cannot believe. I had a friend send me a text message and then started calling me, and she called me several times. And I'm laying in the chair, laying on the table, getting my eyebrows tattooed, right? So I have this needle, and I'm like, why is she calling me? I got to answer. So I tell the technician, like, let me put her on speakerphone. And she said, girl, do you want to go to Israel? And I was like, do I want to go to Israel? Absolutely, I want to go to Israel. And she said, okay. I said, what's the deal? And she said it's with Trinity Broadcasting Network and the Israeli Ministry of Tourism here in America. And I said, oh my God, yes, yes. And she's like, all right, I need you to send me like your bio, your website, and stuff. And I said, absolutely. As soon as I get out of here, I'll do that. And so I did. And a couple of days later, I get an official announcement from the Israeli Ministry of Tourism that I was invited to be a delegate on this trip. And so I am so blessed and so humbled that they chose me. But guys, I was going through it, man. Many of you know my story. In June of 2020, I had this overwhelming discernment, if you will, of what was going to happen to people because of the way we were handling COVID, the change in standards of care, the fear narrative that was pushed, canceling surgeries, not educating our children, not allowing people to work, people losing businesses, people that needed recovery from drugs or alcohol, not being able to get together, just so many things, right? And in June of 2020, I got on my hands and knees and I just broke down. And I was like, Father, like, take this cup from me. I can't handle it. I can't handle all of this pain and just despair that I am feeling. I need you to guide me. From this point on, I am submitting my will to yours, and I want your will to be done. So use me and work with me in the way that you see fit. And every day he would show up. I would have like voices in my head. I don't say it like that because they weren't anything audible, but like a resonation in my spirit of, with scripture is what they were. And I wasn't a Bible reader. I mean, even still yet, it's still hard for me to pick up and read anything, except if it's like a research paper or something. But I had the word of God on my heart as a little girl. And so that's how he spoke to me. He spoke to me in his word, not to fear, don't be anxious, you're not alone, I'm with you, all of these things. And then that gave me the courage when in 2021, he told me record this conversation with the pharmacist and then subsequently release it to the world. I need you to release these videos. And I didn't even know what I was doing at the time was even legal. But you know what? I didn't care. I didn't care if I had to go to jail. I didn't care if I lost my license that I loved. I didn't care about my life. I trusted God even with my family's safety, because at a time, where all censorship was very real with, Meta, our town square, basically saying that safe and effective. And if anybody doesn't agree with that, if you don't get the shot, you're evil and you should die and we shouldn't take care of you, right? But what happened was remarkable to me. I mean, I received over 99% of great responses like, thank you for standing up. Well, I'd been going through this, up and down, peaks and valleys for the last 4 years. And recently I hit this valley that was so low, similar to what I felt in June of 2020. And I was crying and I was like, Father, like, this season has been so hard, Father. I just need you to really show me and show up and renew me in spirit and in strength. And that's when I got that call from my friend. And I was like, wow, oh my goodness. So, guys, a little bit after Thanksgiving, I will be flying out to Israel and I will be spending 6 days there touring, and I will be interviewing and sharing content. So, please follow us, okay? Nurses Out Loud, no spaces on our podcast. It's our new podcast feed that we are starting that will be shorter form content. And we're just testing out a few different things. So follow us there, Nurses Out Loud, no spaces. And certainly you can follow me personally on Facebook and Instagram. And I will be sharing my my Israeli trip to Jerusalem and to Israel. And I'm super excited because I was raised in a church, in a spirit-filled church that talked and preached on the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. So I know God is the same today, yesterday, and forever. Okay. And that book needs to be read as a whole instead of separating. And then I also found out that my name is from a Hebrew origin, and it comes from the Hebrew word Judith, or Joseph for male, and Jodi. So it means like woman from Judea. So I am going to have a series on, just going back to where I guess, my name kind of comes from. And I believe as a believer that when you are born again of spirit and flesh, you are grafted in. And so I cannot wait to share this experience with you authentically and real. And I know that I will be with, a camera crew and everything documenting it. But at the end of the trip, I decided that I wanted to spend some time alone in Jerusalem by myself. And so I will also be sharing the story of me traveling alone. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining me here on this episode. And until next time, friends, I love you. Be safe, be well, and God bless.